John Maguire.
Hello.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, it's a thrill for me to be here with you, Atlas.
I'm so excited for this.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for Adelita Montero for introducing us. She's so nice.
Oh, what a gem.
Yeah. We had a rocking conversation on the show together, and then right afterwards she was like, John Maguire, that's who needs to come on. And we had our little FaceTime together. That was so sweet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then we just booked it.
Yes.
And here we are.
Synchronicity.
I know. And kinesiology and consciousness, this is going to be such a fun episode. We're going to be talking about muscle testing, the levels of consciousness, the influence that has on our societal landscape on a geopolitical and business level, which is hugely influential. Because it may be that egoic levels of consciousness that are in the greatest positions of power across the planet is our most upstream issue that we face.
Right.
Yeah. And we'll have demos. We're going to have demos with muscle testing that we can do at home for the audience as well, regarding just basic muscle testing. We also have props, like things like food to share with people, which will be really exciting. And also, we have some links in the bio below to John's Kinesiology Institute if you guys want to go and explore. He has content there for you to check out, as well as he has a new digital copy of his muscle testing book that accesses innate intelligence, and the link's also there in the bio below, which you can email to request that. And so we'll be unpacking all of that. John, I want to, as we get into some of the more fundamentals of kinesiology and consciousness, I want to kind of get to know the journey perspective. So when you're born in Akron in Ohio, and then who were you growing up that even got you interested in kinesiology and consciousness? Well,
early, my breakthrough came when I was at Oberlin College. And the second semester, I was like all into rock and roll and drugs and like lower consciousness and wasn't even aware of this stuff. So I moved into a natural foods co-op because it was the cheapest place on campus to live, and I wanted to save money. And I didn't even know what natural foods were. I was like beer and pizza was, my staples. Okay. So my roommate said, hey, I'm going to a yoga class. A yoga class? You want to come along? I said, well, I don't know. And I went, and that was a major shift in my life because the yoga teacher was like tuned in to higher consciousness that I was unaware of. So I ended up taking a meditation, like transcendental meditation. He brought us to see Ram Dass. And so, so I got to see Ram Dass, and it was like, my life just totally changed.
Wow. From beer and pizza to natural foods co-op and yoga and Ram Dass. I love the transition. This is so great. Okay, keep going. It's so funny.
So I became a vegetarian, and just the food alone raised my vibration. And then I was meditating, I was doing yoga, and my aspiration when I was a teenager was to be a rock and roll star, right? Well, then it was about, okay, no, I want to be a vehicle for higher consciousness.
Beautiful.
So I became a yoga instructor and a meditation instructor in Akron, Ohio. So I was teaching around northeastern Ohio. And one of my students was a chiropractor. At the end of the class, he said, hey, I want to show you something. So he said, hold your arm out. And so I'm going to push on your arm, and you just meet my pressure and see what happens. And so, okay. And he pushes, and it tests strong. So he says, now watch this. So he does something to shift the energy flow in my acupuncture meridians, which in yoga we know the prana in the body, circulating one high-level prana, and all of a sudden I can't hold my arm up. And he goes, watch this. He directs the energy in another way, and my arm is totally strong. So he says, we're doing this lecture demonstration on applied kinesiology at my office. Why don't you come and check it out? So I go see this and say, wow, this is fascinating. You can find out where there's energy blocks in the body that are causing health challenges, and how when you unblock that energy and you get all the systems flowing in the vibrational frequency of the body to be elevated, your health vastly improves and symptoms go away naturally.
Yes.
So then I said, where did you study this? They said, oh, we learned it from this guy named Dr. George Goodhart in Detroit, Michigan, who discovered this. I thought, wow, that would be amazing to study with him. Fast forward 2 years later, now I'm a body worker, and I'm working in a chiropractic office in Youngstown, Ohio. So we go on a winter vacation to Colorado, and on the trip, the chiropractors say, hey, Dr. Anderson is going to study with George Goodhart for a year-long certification program.
Wow.
Do you want to go along?
Wow.
It was like, wow, just dropped right in my lap. So
Yeah.
I became basically certified in applied kinesiology in 1982.
So cool.
And that totally changed my practice. You know, as a massage therapist, I was using what Goodhart called the rub and hope method. You know, I had all these techniques, but I didn't know what technique to do. I didn't know what was causing a person's, challenges. So we learned, all these ways to massage the body, and hopefully they'd be better, and often they would be, but sometimes we'd miss the boat.
Yeah.
Well, Goodhart talked about the Triad of Health, which is physical, the structural body. Then we have the biochemical and nutritional aspects of health
Of course.
that affect the structure.
Yes.
And then we have the mental and emotional side of the Triad of Health
Beautiful.
that affects the other two. So everything
Beautiful.
affects everything.
Yeah.
So then I started
course,
realizing
of course.
that there's times when people have back pain that's due to emotional issues. And Goodhart called that emotional low back.
Wow.
And there's other issues, like when I started learning this and applying it, we'd have people with mental and emotional issues. Like one man had anxiety and insomnia. His doctor, which conventional Western medicine, which certainly has its place,
Totally.
absolutely has its place, but they often will treat the symptom
Totally.
and not find the cause.
Yeah.
So with this one man, when I was testing, I found, there's structural issues, the base of the triangle, and he needed to have cranial adjustments, which were affecting his brain, which were affecting his pineal gland, which was affecting his melatonin output, which was
Wow.
affecting his sleep,
Yes.
which was affecting his anxiety, and was affecting, the whole issue with his health. So just merely doing that, and one other correction came up, balancing his chakras.
Yes.
See, the chakras affect everything. Those are the energy centers in the body that are also corresponding to nerve plexuses.
Of course. Yeah.
So when we did, those balances, he no longer had the anxiety. He no longer had the insomnia. And I just spoke with him the other day. This is like probably 15 years later, and he's still doing great.
Love it.
So the analogy is this. When you have a puddle of water on the floor, you can get a mop and mop it up. But if the puddle comes back, you say, well, let me get a better mop, or let me get a different mop, or let me get a shop vac. But if you never look up at the ceiling and see, there's a hole in the roof,
Exactly.
why treat the symptom and ignore the cause?
Yep.
So the
Exactly.
source is what, Goodhart particularly was able to help us define through muscle testing. It's a way of tapping into the body's innate intelligence
That's right.
and energy systems, because we are basically all energetic vibrational beings.
Yes.
And the muscle testing says, where is the, let's say, disharmony? Where are the frequencies not flowing? Where and the energy's blocked? And when you find out where it's blocked and which technique will unblock it, then muscle testing also helps to show you, did your correction work? And ultimately, the person feels better almost immediately. And instantly.
Yeah. Wow. Ooh, such a fascinating journey. I love the transition at such a young age from beer and pizza to yoga.
Beer to Buddha.
Beer to Buddha.
Yeah.
It's a really beautiful transition, and there's always these profound influences that happen to us along our journey that catalyze our interest to go inward. And that interest to go inward, it's a classic parable of the prodigal son. The more that you go outward and outward and outward in seeking happiness externally, the more you're going to recognize that happiness is found through the inward path of recognizing that consciousness is it, that we are already it, and that is known as this well of honey of peace and bliss that is under the rock.
Yeah.
And that we have to go inward in order for us to dissolve that egoic rock of the separate entity, and to have that well of honey be 24/7 bliss and peace. And then that is an effortless outward path that then happens. It becomes effortless to express ourselves artistically in a way that is extremely harmonic with the planetary intelligence that is already present. And so I love these fundamental moments of yours, and for so many of the other guests that have them go inward. And it was so profound, like it also obviously has happened to me and just been so influential. And then also, I love how, as you're explaining, like this perfect opportunity that lands, it used to be the rub and hope method with the muscle as a masseuse, and then moving into the Goodheart method. So George Goodheart being the founder of applied kinesiology, approximately, you said 55 years ago or so.
Yeah, it was in 1964 he made his first discoveries.
First discoveries around then, and then you about 20 years later in 84, right?
82, actually.
In 82. So around, 18 or so years later, that you had the opportunity to go for a year-long course of his.
Yes.
And he has this triad. And it's fascinating because when Adelita was on the show, she also has the similar triad, of course, because it is the most fundamental way to look at it. You have the physical, and then you have that biochemical, which is all about what you put in as an input into the body, as nutrition and all of the Ayurvedic techniques as well. And then also similarly with your input stream of content, right, of all of the modern technology age, your input stream also affects you obviously tremendously as well on the content side. And then you have this mental emotional side of things, which is kind of like your psyche. And the consciousness or the awareness that it is kind of the home to all of those, your moment to moment experiences and existence that you're having. And then Adelita also had this great, like, everything is encompassed, that pie is encompassed by the spiritual.
Yeah.
And that's another obviously great way to look at it. So this triad is so fundamental, and it's so, all these different guests that we've been having on the show around maximizing well-being, they're all doing something. They're just piecing the triad in different ways.
Yeah.
And those are all of the different faces up the same mountain of maximizing our well-being.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the one truth at the top of the mountain of this is how to hone in on optimizing, on maximizing your well-being and everyone else's.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it sounds like then that you took what the teachings of George Goodheart were into your applied kinesiology practice, and then you kind of started to undergo this, muscle testing is something that David Hawkins has obviously been a massive influence on you, me, Adelita, beyond as well. But it seems like it's becoming more and more popular. So why don't you keep walking us through the process of what happened to you in the formation also of the Kinesiology Institute and moving to Los Angeles, to Pasadena, and your continued story.
Well, at the end of my certification with Goodheart in the fall of 82, I took a Touch for Health instructor training to actually teach other people Touch for Health. Now, Touch for Health was started by Dr. John Thie from Pasadena, and he was one of Goodhart's, they called him the Dirty Dozen, the first group of about 20 different doctors that said, let's codify Dr. Goodhart's work and put it into a system that we can teach others. Well, John Thie said to Goodheart, why don't we teach this to lay people and write a book for them?
Yep.
And Goodheart was so busy with the latest research, he said, John, if you want a book for lay people, you write it.
Yep.
So he wrote the book Touch for Health that could bring it to the masses.
Yep.
And it was such a brilliant thing that's really made such a difference, because then not just the licensed doctor, but the general population and paraprofessionals could start using muscle testing and all this knowledge, this body of knowledge of how to bring the body into balance energetically. And we use, again, muscle testing to find out what's bringing it out of balance, which we'll demonstrate here today, how you can test the foods you eat. You can even test things like lifestyle. As you know, with the book Power versus Force, with David Hawkins' work, you can test just about everything, including businesses and pathways of your life. Like if someone's saying, well, and I've done this with Adelita, is it best for me to go in this direction with this career or this direction? And the career path that gives you a higher level of consciousness and vibration will test strong, and something that might be not so favorable for your evolution and self-development will test weak. So you can use muscle testing all over the place. So back to John Thie. So I'm teaching Touch for Health all over northeastern Ohio and then on to other states and Florida. One year I find out at the annual convention that I'm the person that's taught more people than anyone in the United States.
Whoa.
Well, they invited me to move from Akron to Pasadena and work as a program director for the Touch for Health Foundation here. Well, I ended up finding, Touch for Health is fantastic and there's a lot of great material there, but I'm teaching mainly health professionals this. And there's so much material from Goodheart, as well as other doctors that I've studied with, like Sheldon Deal, who is he helped David Hawkins write the book, Power versus Force, by the way.
Yep.
So I'm like, there's a lot of good material that's beyond Touch for Health that I think practitioners could really benefit from.
Yes.
So then in 1992, I left the Touch for Health Foundation and started my own Kinesiology Institute, where then I started certifying people throughout the, actually we have students now in 89 countries, particularly online.
Wow.
That are using this all over the world. It's so exciting to hear the results that they're having in their practice as well as their personal lives. And that's the great thing about everything you learn in this, you can, and we'll demonstrate this today, you can use for yourself.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's a great way to take the gems of, and it's a lot of easy to use techniques, and they're non-invasive.
Yes.
And like you can get rid of pain like in an instant, as well as an emotional pain and suffering.
Yeah.
I've had times in my life where I literally, with some of the challenges I went through, I would wake up in the morning saying, I just want to die. I don't want to be alive. Yeah. Well, through using the techniques that are in this work, I was able to totally shift that. And within a matter of weeks, I was like, I'm back in my groove. I'm back making a difference for other people and living my mission, and got out of my deep suffering.
Yeah. It'll probably be helpful to unpack some of the teachings of Touch for Health, Goodheart, and then Touch for Health, and then how you basically synthesized that and kept adding your own learnings into what you developed with Kinesiology Institute.
Yeah.
So let's let's walk, and if we want to do demos of Goodheart and Touch for Health, and we can do those right along the way. So walk us through those, and then how also, like you were describing, how they're tackling, if there is that pain that's concentrated, that's physically for some people, or emotional, how do they help heal towards well-being? Yeah.
Well, I'll start with a technique that we can do right here.
Perfect.
And people watching can do.
Perfect.
When I was invited to teach at the Tony Robbins Life Mastery University, which I've been doing now for 27 years, it's been such a delight.
Yes.
I asked John Thie, well, what should I show these people? He says, you ought to show them the ear unrolling technique, because it often gets immediate results, and it's really easy and fantastic.
One more time on the name of it. It's called
the ear unrolling technique.
Ear unrolling technique.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what we're doing.
This
now,
is funny. Okay.
Do this.
Okay.
Turn, and everyone watching can do this. Turn your head from right to left and see if you have any stiffness or tension in your neck.
From right to left.
And then left to right. Doesn't matter the order.
Okay.
Just turn one way and turn the other. Now I'm noticing when I turn to the right, my neck's a little stiffer. Okay, so everyone do that as you're watching. Now the technique's simple. What you're doing is you're taking the rolled over part of your ear and you're just unrolling it and pulling it away from the opening and then working down towards the bottom of the ear. And you can do that about 3 or 4 times. So I'm just... And so I demonstrated this, and I still do every presentation. And I had one woman she was from London, and she said she had a car accident earlier, like a year earlier, and she was having all kinds of pain and stress in her neck. And after doing this technique, just taking about 60 to 80 seconds, it totally relieved her neck tension.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So after doing that, again, 4 or 5 times. Now...
This is called like the Dumbo technique.
Yeah, it's like Dumbo. Yeah, you're making your ears bigger.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great.
And so now turn ahead again and see. Oh, wow. I'm getting a lot better range of motion now in that side.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And so that's a simple touch for health technique.
Yeah, that's really simple.
It
and
is
that was
easy.
about a minute of ear unrolling.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like an ear massage, really.
Yeah.
It's like an unrolling and pulling massage technique and you do it all across the ear.
Yeah.
And you do that. So is there an acupuncture relationship there to the neck? And it's called is that C1? Is that what the top one is called?
Well, the top vertebra in the neck is C1.
C1,
but
yeah.
I'll explain it.
Yeah, okay.
The ears act as antennae for the acupuncture meridian system. The acupuncture meridian system, you can think of it as wireless channels that are going along the surface of the body that have acupressure points, or acupuncture, as if you've been to an acupuncturist. These points along the pathways of the meridian are kind of like relay towers or antennae that transmit this energy throughout the body, and it helps the body to function and be at peak health. So when our bioelectrical energy, also known as chi, is blocked or low, then we have basically health challenges, or at least low energy, or we're just not focused or basically able to be at our best. Okay.
Yep.
So you want to have high levels of chi. And so one way to boost your chi, very simply, is doing this ear unrolling technique. While you're pulling on the ears and unrolling, it's sort of like telling the antenna to boost up and bring in more chi, bring in more energy.
Interesting.
So not only is it good for stiff necks, it also helps to energize you.
So now, where on the acupuncture meridian system, the ears are on that?
Well,
we'll unpack that more.
Yeah.
Where are all the other ones too?
Yeah. Well, again, it's more of a receptor for all the chi, and there's other points as well.
The bioelectrical that this ocean is.
Yeah.
So we're in the ocean, and there's a bioelectrical torus, in a sense, that is happening. And the more constrained egoic levels have these smaller electromagnetic bioelectrical fields.
Yeah.
And then the more you have a state of unconditional love and light and love energy, the more clear your chakras are, the more you resonate, and the higher frequency, higher vibration. And so now within this acupuncture meridian system, the ears are one of these kind of points that enable a higher chi, and then there's other points that enable these higher chis. And so that's one of them. Are there other ones that you're recommend that are simple? Like, where are these?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back to a little more of the context of this.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Yes.
Yeah. So we have many different energy bodies and flows within the body. Like the chakras are one energy system. There's figure 8 energy flows. And in my certification programs, we get and break these down because everything affects everything. And that's one of the things that, like you said, your thought, your focus, your emotions, they're affecting all this.
Of course.
What you eat and your surroundings and the people you're surrounded with.
Totally.
Everything affects everything. And so one of the pathways that we work with a lot within applied kinesiology and touch for health is the meridian system.
Okay.
So you can think of it as these highways or pathways, and each meridian system governs specific functions within the body, as well as organs that they're often named after. So we have a lung meridian, but it's also affecting every cell, like the flow of oxygen into the cell and carbon dioxide out is governed by the lung meridian.
Okay.
And then we have a heart meridian, which also the function of blood getting in and out of the cell. So every cell is like its own little body as well.
Yep.
And so we have points, little, like, again, antennae along a meridian. So let's just take the lung meridian, for instance.
Okay.
You can go from beginning to end by just stroking right along the surface of the body from just right up here inside the shoulder. That's lung 1, and it goes down the palmar side or the front of the forearm right along to the thumbnail right here. So if you just stroke along there.
Even just this,
Yeah.
I do this quite a bit, is I just stroke my own body.
Yeah.
And just in general, when we're laying down, in our bed, maybe in the morning or at night, or when we're just taking a break to lay down on the couch, it's just so nice to just undergo this. It's a very self-love process.
Yeah.
And whether you know it or not, we're dealing with these acupuncture meridians when we're doing these types of maneuvers. It's so interesting.
Yeah. Now, along the lung meridian, there are certain points that are known as the tonification point, which is right at the radial artery right here is the tonification for lung, which people are, particularly with what's going on now with COVID, and the lungs are being affected. This would be a way to tonify.
What does that mean, tonify?
Increase energy flow.
Increase energy flow. Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying. It's sometimes when you get inside a system and you start using jargon, and people say, what?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Increase
So it's a way to
flow.
increase the energy flow. So you can just touch there very lightly with, I like to use the thumb, either the thumb or the index and middle finger. And as you touch right there, that can help bring energy and flow into it. And then you can do the other side. Yeah, good. Always take a deep breath because that also increases chi.
Yes. Breath in itself is life force.
Yeah.
It is prana. It is chi.
Yeah, that's, and that whole pranayama
Yes.
in yoga. In fact, I do alternate nostril breathing before my meditation every day. And that brings the brain and the neurotransmitters into balance. So, so that's one point. Now,
conscious breath can basically be, in many ways, referred to as the nature of reality in many ways.
Yes.
Literally, your breath is it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the simplest, clearest way to bring yourself into balance in consciousness. It's just connected breathing. Yes.
The tool that is always with us like that. And then just that awe, just the sheer awe for the breath, the awe for the consciousness. That in itself is so much of the nature of reality.
Yeah, everyone take a deep breath as you're watching, especially breathing in through the belly and expanding the belly.
Yep.
And then relaxing it out. Okay, so let's do another acupressure point.
Okay.
This is when I teach in the Tony Robbins program. If you're pregnant, don't do this one, by the way. This is right on the back of the hand between the first and second metacarpal. That's the hand bones. And you're pressing with your thumb right here. And this can often...
Can you bring that up into your shot? Yeah,
Yes.
let's have you bring that up into your shot.
There you go.
Okay, cool.
So that point right there, you've rubbed there, that's called large intestine 4.
Whoa.
And this is often good for headaches, can be good for tooth pain, and it helps to bring energy, blocked energy out of the head.
Especially given the technology age and using cell phones and keyboards, this is one that I do a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's another good point. And, so each point has its place and function, and that's where we also show in muscle testing how to find out which points are blocked. And what it is, and we'll show muscle testing here in a little bit, is you can find out when you have a strong muscle and then that point is touched either by you or the person testing you, or you're testing someone else and you're touching their point, or they are, and a strong muscle will then become weakened, that is an indication that that point needs stimulation and that there's energy blocked there.
Interesting.
So that's another one.
So when a strong muscle weakens, that means there's energy blocked and it needs stimulation.
If they're touching the point, yes.
If they're touching the point, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that was another main thing that you said in your first intro segment that I wanted to make sure that we honed in on, which is the idea of these blockages. Mm-hmm. And in a sense, when we had Anthony Flores on the show, he talks about it like garden hoses, knots in the garden hose.
Yes.
And then that's what we're doing, is we're doing the modality of the assistance of unwinding that so that the energy flows, that chi is a lot more peak performance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
And so we'll kind of unpack that as well.
Yeah.
Cool.
Fundamentally, any symptom you have is blocked energy.
Yeah.
You know, and
It's the
yeah,
the roof leaking, and rather than cleaning up the puddle. That was a great analogy.
Yeah.
Get up there.
Yeah. And so you're basically finding where the energy is blocked. But also we use muscle testing to find out what's blocking the energy. Is it something in your physical realm? Is it something in your nutritional biochemical body? Is it in your emotional and your mental body? You know,
And can you tell from an acupuncture meridian which one of those three it is, or from a muscle test?
it's a muscle test.
It's a muscle
that we
test.
do. Yeah.
So you'll be able to determine from the muscle test which of those three also it is.
Or energetic, you know, like the acupuncture meridians, the chakras. Again, I'll give a demonstration of this.
Okay, cool.
So I can touch someone's back, or they can touch the back. And when you have a strong muscle and then the point of the body where there's, say, a symptom of stress, whatever, is touched, a strong muscle will test weak. Then we have ways of assessing, is that weakness have some structural element? Does it have a biochemical element? Does it have an emotional element? And does it have an electrical element? So I was working with this woman who was a nurse practitioner, and she says, yes, I've had this back pain for 4 years. So I say, well, let's test what's involved in your back pain. Because often again, if you have back pain and you go to a therapist, they'll do massage or physical therapy, or a doctor might prescribe, you know, a muscle relaxer, or they'll do whatever system that they know everything. If they have a hammer, everything is a nail, or, you know, if they have a screwdriver, everything is a screw, and they just use their tool hoping that'll fix it. Well, when I checked with her, I said, oh, it's actually emotional and energetic. And so she said, well, I'm not stressed about anything. And I said, well, how long have you had this pain? And she said, 4 years. I said, well, was anything going on in your life that was affecting you emotionally 4 years ago? And she said, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Emotional stress gets locked in the body. And if you don't resolve it, it keeps holding on.
Yeah.
And so energetically, there was a blockage from that emotional event 4 years ago. And then I also found there was an energetic property. In the energetic field, and this is a brilliant quote by Einstein, he said, the energy field is the sole governing agent of matter.
Yeah.
That our energy fields, like the acupuncture meridian system, the auric fields, the chakras, the auric fields are like layers of energy surrounding the body. And most people don't see that with their eyes, but it's there. And they have electrical equipment. There's like Kirlian photography that you can actually observe that. We just don't have the sensitivity to pick up those frequencies. Well, in her case, I cleared her emotional stress from that 4 years ago. We have very simple emotional stress release techniques to show. And then she ended up, through that and working on the auric field, said, God, the back pain's totally gone. And I talked to her later, and it hadn't come back. Yeah. So that's where, again, you're looking at what aspect, and it's often a combination of them.
Totally.
Another guy had knee pain, and he had knee surgery, but it didn't fix it. So they said, well, we're going to have to do a knee replacement. Well, he's a dance instructor, and he said, I can't afford to be off work that much. I'll lose all my students, and my business will go down the drain. So he comes to me, In fact, I met him at a Tony Robbins program when I was presenting there. And he said, well, can you see what's going on? And again, instead of me throwing my toolbox at him, I said, let's assess through muscle testing what is your individual situation.
Yep.
Came up was primarily nutritional and some structural. And I found out there were certain foods he was eating, particularly wheat, that he would eat every meal, that was creating an inflammatory condition, and that then was causing his knee pain.
Yeah.
Well, he got wheat out of his diet, and we did some structural balancing, and I followed him for 16 years. He never needed the knee surgery, and he was able to continue doing his dance instruction and was fine.
Wow.
No more pain, because he knew, and that's often the case. See, we don't realize the food we're eating is often creating our physical and emotional problems.
That's right.
We have people that clean up their diet and their depression and anxiety goes away.
That's right.
So that's where, again, the holistic nature of this system, and the beauty of muscle testing is you can assess what it is for this person, because some people will have emotional low back. Other will have structural factors we need to clear. Others will have like the energetic factors. I had one woman who had a chronic hip pain, and every doctor she'd been to, nothing would help.
Yeah.
And so I'm testing, it comes up, it's inner auric field. So I'm working with her and a crystal and clearing the energy field around her hip, never even touching her hip. And she says, oh my God, it feels like you just took a vacuum cleaner and pulled the pain out of my body. I mean, it sometimes amazes me. It's like, wow, how that could be so phenomenally effective.
Yeah.
And there's times where people need a hip replacement. There's sometimes, and I want people to be aware of, I'm not saying don't do conventional medical tests. And I always say rule things out, and yet when they're not helping and they can't find anything, there's something in the vibrational field that doesn't show up in lab reports, like we call it subclinical. A lot of people have like subclinical thyroid, where, they had the tests and everything looks good. Or the adrenal glands. There's another one that are often, we call it low adrenal hypoadrenia from all the stress people are going through. And so many factors that if you just look at the energetic and vibrational frequencies of the body and assess the entire body, then you're able to see, and we have a way of establishing the priorities. Often the chakras show up as priorities. And when you clear people's chakras, often their lives totally transform. Which is a lot what happened with me when I'm going from beer and pizza to the Buddha and pranayama. I changed my B's and P's.
Exactly.
And I started balancing my chakras, and my whole life changed.
I'm so fascinated by seeing and learning which tests in the muscle testing, what the exact nuanced strategies are on your end to determine whether it's physical or biochemical or emotional and mental. I'm really interested in that. Yeah. So should we do some of that?
Perhaps I can show how to do self-testing.
Perfect.
Would that be good?
Okay. Is that the neat one?
Yeah, we can do. Yeah.
Okay, great. Probably good time to zoom out then, and I'll get behind that center cam.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm gonna man some of the middle camera for some of this content. And then we'll also be standing up for some of it, so we'll be adjusting that center shot for you guys.
Sure.
One moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to do the knee one, so we want to angle it down, right?
Yeah. So one of the ways I self-test is I bring my knee up and the foot out a little bit in front. And then you can do this along with me. I put my palm on the end of my thigh, just right above the knee, and I meet my pressure kind of like I'm holding the knee up, and then I push down towards the floor, and I'm meeting my pressure. So I'm pushing with first like the weight of my hand and a little harder, about 8 pounds of pressure. Okay? Now, I then ask my body to give me a no response, meaning I want to see what the body does when it is basically showing me energy blockage or stress. You can think of it that way. So you can even do this as I say, body, give me a no, and I think of a stressor. And then when I push, I just give way. So I might think of a frustrating thought, okay? Now, rather than be in your head, you want to be in your gut and allowing your body, being open to the result and giving, say, body, give me accurate information. That's the intention. I'm having an intention of getting accurate information from my innate intelligence.
Yes.
Getting your head out of it and say, intelligence, give me a response.
Yes.
Now I say, body, give me a yes. And I think of a happy thought. So everyone can try that. Again, if you have the foot a little further in front, it engages this muscle here called the quadriceps. So body, give me a no. Body, give me a yes. Okay? Now...
Okay, so again, the recap is that we're going to be in our body. We're going to land in our energetic body away from the head. And so we're here and we're lifting up the leg and we're saying, we're thinking something around a happy, positive thought. We're getting a body give me a yes. And we're really and we have that engagement of the quad. And then if it's, something around anger or misery or suffering, body give me a no. So easy. Body give me a no. Body give me a yes. Yeah, okay. All right. Okay, so now we have that. And so it's almost a completely, we're not even using, in a sense, even our conscious perception around this. It's just more a relaxed state. It's a very relaxed, innate intelligence state. Okay.
And the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Yes, exactly.
So that's the leg test.
There was one that I was doing. I was watching John's videos, and I was doing one which we'll probably demo when we're standing up. And I'm looking forward to that one as well, because that one has a lot to do with sort of the more that you do these, the more that you get into, especially like, should I have 2 ounces, 4 ounces, 6 ounces of this thing, and you can literally you can tell which way you're swaying. And we'll do some of that. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So I'll show one little thing to show if emotional clearing would help.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
So I'm going to go again with the foot test here, and I'm going to think of a stressor. Okay. So I'll think of a stressor. Right now I got to get my taxes ready. Okay. So I think about getting my taxes ready. And when I think about that and push on my leg, I totally go weak. Okay. Yeah. Now there are stress release points on the forehead. They're called the frontal eminences. They're like right here where the forehead kind of has a little bump or ridge. Those eminences, that's what a kind of a protrusion on the forehead. And we often touch them when we're under stress instinctively. Like we go, oh my God.
That's right.
Oh. Now physiologically what this does is it gets more blood flow and oxygen into particularly the emotional centers of your brain to help clear the stress.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch here again and think about my taxes, doing my taxes. Oh, and now it's strong. See, so without that, thinking the taxes, I go weak. And then I think about doing my taxes and I'm strong. So that's just an example. I mean, anything you're stressed about, if you touch here and you think about it, it clears it energetically to help you not be so stressed about it.
Yeah.
And it unblocks energy. It gets energy flowing from the back of your brain, where our old association area is, to the front of your brain, which is called the new association area, which we'll talk about more later. But it's just a very simple technique. And you don't rub, you just touch lightly, like this. Just touch and hold. Now, what I'll often do is, before I go to sleep, I'll even go to sleep with my hands here. I'll be lying, say on my side, and I'll just put my hands here, and I'll go off to sleep, or like this. And that is able to clear a lot of the stress of the day and help you fall asleep better. So anytime you're having insomnia, do some slow, deep breathing, touch here, and then just let your body unwind. Yeah. So that's a great technique. Tony actually shows that in the Life Mastery program that I teach at.
Beautiful.
And and it's just profound. You can do that with other people. Like for mothers or fathers, if your kid's stressed, or anybody, I do this with my clients in sessions where they're stressed about something. I'll hold these points and then have just doing slow, deep breathing. It's really one of the easiest techniques in Touch for Health and Applied Kinesiology.
Yeah.
So that's a simple one, but I'm showing how when we talked about this earlier, when something is
like taxes,
testing weak.
Like taxes.
Yeah, taxes.
We'll do it, yeah.
Yeah, it's a taxing situation, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you have energy blockage, that was a thought or emotional blockage, and you touch a point that will help to correct that, it goes from weak to strong. Okay.
I want to also get in this and give it a go. Interesting. So
yeah.
All right. So yeah, taxes are definitely not a favorite of mine either. So all right. So taxes. Okay. That's taxes. How about smoothie? Yeah, that's holding. Okay. Taxes. Okay. So now taxes.
Do you notice how it strengthens when you? Yeah. And so, and you don't have to muscle test to do this technique. I mean, I just do it whenever I'm stressed about anything, and it helps to clear it
totally
really quickly.
And again, it's just that even just that touch component itself, especially like you say, the prefrontal cortex, or you said the mental eminence is what you were saying. Frontal eminence.
That means the frontal bone. This is the frontal bone.
Exactly.
And it's the eminence or bump on the frontal bone.
Yeah.
So that's what you're touching. On both sides, just about 3 fingers width above the eyebrows.
Yeah.
And you're just touching it with the pads of the fingers very lightly. You're not rubbing, you're just touching and holding. And another little tip is you can slightly tug up on the skin towards the hairline and just touch and hold.
Oh, that's nice too. Ooh,
and
I like
breathe
that
deeply.
Slight tug. That's so nice.
Yeah. And again, Tony Robbins is showing this now. I originally presented that back in the in the early days, and now he's even incorporating this in this program because it's so simple and yet so profound. I've had people with major stressors that doing this helped to clear it.
Yeah.
Now, even when you're touching here, you can focus on the stressor and whatever happened in the past that you're stressed about. But what you're doing is you're changing the neuroassociation, where instead of when you think of it, energy blockage, stress, going into fight or flight, your body is in a lower state of consciousness.
You're almost turning the tax into something that's a little more relaxing.
It's got energy flow on it. And then you actually start thinking of new ways. It's like, oh, I just thought my new assistant, I'm going to turn that job over to her. So I'm going to have her working my QuickBooks up, and then I'm going to get that to my accountant. And and I see it now all being complete, rather than, oh God, we go into these catastrophic expectations. Oh, I don't want to do this. And resistance, basically, state of resistance.
The pragmatic benefits of this are rebaselining ourselves to a state of peace and bliss on that 24/7 basis, which is what the spiritual perennial wisdoms are, which is when you go inward and recognize that consciousness is it, that you recognize more and more that I feel that well of bliss and peace on a moment-to-moment basis, even though there's taxes, even though there's these things that, quote, appear for some people to be like suffering, we still Jedi and ninja our way through it peacefully and blissfully, harmonically. And so this is one of many of the muscle tests. Now we have other ones. We have
the sway test.
So we should stand now? Should we stand now? Okay.
And I just want to cap on what you said.
Yes.
Is it's when we resist our experience.
I know. This is so key.
And what you were just talking about is it's about flow.
It's about flow.
Don't resist flow. Even if you're finding yourself upset or angry or, feeling any, let's say, lower vibrational frequency emotion, accept it and flow with it and just be with it. See, we have a saying, whatever you can feel and express, you can heal.
That's it.
But if you resist, it's not life that brings us down and kills us. It's resisting life, inner
That's it.
experience. So
That's
just
it.
flow with your experience. And then when you're in a state of flow, you've got energy flow, you've got then completion, things, magically, even you meet the right person, that it all comes together like we met, it's like when you're in the flow, your life is like your dharma just unfolds.
It does. Yeah, it does.
You don't have to force it.
There's no force.
Yeah.
And the analogy of the perennial wisdoms across mystic traditions is the oceanicness. It's that the more that we recognize that consciousness is that pure bare awareness of the oceanic infinitude that is eternal, and then it's always being colored by the waves. The waves are the experiences, the thoughts, emotions, feelings, beliefs, objects, sensations, perceptions, taste, smell, touch, all of those things. That then what happens is we learn how to ride the crest of the wave.
Surf it.
We surf that crest, David Hawkins, and all of these other, just surf on the crest. And versus when we swim against the currents and that we're resisting. And so these strategies, they help in the process of relaxing into the wave, into the experience.
Yeah. So, let's show the sway test. This one I use
standing.
more than anything. Yeah. Okay. So, we get out of the microphone here. So, when you're doing the standing test, the sway test, am I at a good angle for you?
Yeah, you should see it, right? Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what I do is I have my feet about shoulder width apart, and then I focus again on my gut, and I'll think a happy feeling and thinking the word yes, 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 yes. And I notice I sway forward. Most people do. Now I'm going to think a frustrating thought. I can't think of the taxes anymore because it doesn't frustrate me. Okay, let's see. Okay, well, just the amount of work I need to get accomplished this week. Okay, and I think of that, no, and then I think of the word no. So everyone, you can just stand and do this as you're watching. So think of a happy thought and see if you go forward or back. And just, again, tune into your gut. They call it the dantian, down here below your navel, and that's your body's center intelligence. And see a yes goes forward for me. And then I think a no and then upsetting thought, and I go back. Okay? Now, how I can then use that is I can take, say, again, a thought or maybe a decision I'm wanting to do. So I'm thinking about, okay, is it good for me to work on this project tomorrow? Is it in my highest benefit to work on this project tomorrow? So I'm thinking of a project, and I'm getting a no. So I'm going to think of another project that I'm looking to take on. And that one's saying a yes. See, so a lot of times I say, well, what do I do today? What's my highest, best intention for the day?
Yes.
I got 3 or 4 different ones that I could choose from, okay?
Yep.
Now you can also think of a food. So I'm going to think of a food, okay? I've got one in mind. And I'm going back, okay? It's interesting because it's one of the things we're going to actually test.
Should we bring it up?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, great. This one?
Okay, well, let's do this one.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I've got sugar here, okay? So I'm going to hold the sugar. If you have the food, you can hold it, especially against your midline. And when I hold it, I sway back, okay? So you want to should I bring the plate up and we can just take one food at a time?
So we have a plate of blueberries, carrots, grapes, strawberries.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So which one shall we?
Well, let me grab. Oh, these strawberries look great.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if you can smell the food, that's going into your olfactory nerve even better. So I'm going to smell the strawberry and see what I get. Okay, and it's leaning forward. Okay, so now let me grab the grape. Okay. I can even taste a little bit. Okay, got the taste. Oh, I'm going back on the grape.
Interesting.
And that's actually the one I thought about earlier. I was thinking the grape. But so for me, the grape isn't doing it.
Okay.
Okay, let me grab a blueberry. See how I do on the blueberries today. I'm not getting a strong yes or a strong no. It's interesting. I did already have blueberries earlier, wild, organic blueberries.
Yeah.
And my body is saying, yeah, but it's not like saying, oh, that would really be ideal for me. Now, I do this with smoothies in the morning where I open the bag of the, frozen, like blueberries and strawberries, and I have acai, and I'll smell it, and if I go forward, that's what I put in my smoothie that day.
Yep.
And I'll show it on tea as well. Okay, so here's a carrot. Yeah, okay. Oh, how about that? So for me, the carrot isn't the thing to do. Now, also...
We have the teas?
Yeah, the teas. Now, just to note, sometimes if you have a commercial grown carrot and an organic carrot, you might get a different response.
Yeah.
And it's not to say, oh, carrots are never good for me, but it's something that right now my body's not wanting that. See, we have bio-individuality, and what's good for you might be not good for me, or what's good for me one day is not good another. So let's just take a tea here. So we got Lipton tea. So I smell that, and I get a sway back. So not so good. Now let's get another tea here. Okay, so this is an herbal tea. I can smell it, and I go really forward on that one. So those are ways I use every day to see, what is my best energy at that moment. So, and I'll go to the market, and I'll hold, like, I was at Trader Joe's last night, and I was holding certain food, and if, like, I can't remember if it was, I think it was eggs.
Should we get back to the mics
Yeah.
too? Okay.
Yeah, let's get back to the mics.
Cool.
Yeah, we can talk now.
This is interesting, just to even to think about. Okay, so that's strawberry.
Yeah, you're getting a good hit on the strawberry.
I am. Okay. All right. Carrot.
Oh.
A little bit more back. A little bit more back.
Now, is that, and it's not, it's
probably
that specific carrot. Is that commercial grown or is it organic? Do you know?
I'm not sure. Yes.
And you're good on the...
There's some blueberry. I'm on the strawberry blueberries right now.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And the teas. I mean, I'll probably even do that Lipton. It's like, this one's faster forward, though.
Yeah,
So
but you were okay on the Lipton. Now,
it's very, I just want to say this, it's very, very, let's see how this angles. It's okay for now. I'll go and I'll angle it down quick, but I know this one's going to, I already have this one's.
see, you had sugar,
refined sugar is not the thing. It's funny that, okay, let's bring this in for now. If we want to stand back up, we will. Let's go right
we're probably done with the standing for now. I think
think so?
Yeah, we've demonstrated that enough, I think.
Okay, cool.
So I'm going to just mention about coffee.
Can I quick? I know, you had this story, and I know you're going to mention coffee. I just want to say this so bad. This is so interesting because what you said a moment ago is so accurate with this, with foods, is that basically the more that you do this, the more it becomes, you unleash the innate intelligence of the muscle testing that you're talking about. You connect with it. It's extremely intuitive. It's extremely sensitive to the body's intelligence. And you just, it becomes more and more of that subtlety over time. And you can almost kind of ride with the flow of that oceanic waveness a little bit more, like, whoa.
You can hear its voice.
Yeah, you can hear its voice. Yeah. Pull up a little bit more in the chair again.
Okay.
Pull up forward a little bit more. Pull up a little bit more.
Okay. Is this good?
Perfect. That's good.
All right.
Beautiful. Okay. So so we're on coffee now. Is that where you were?
Yeah, like I have this really healthy organic coffee. It's got some like mushroom that's blended with it, and it's like great antioxidant coffee. And I find that some days I'll open the bag and smell the coffee, and it always smells great. But some days when I smell it, I go forward, and then I'll take it, and then the next day maybe forward, and then maybe a third day I go back.
That's right.
See, so our body likes variety, and if you keep doing something every day, like a lot of people, they just eat the same thing, they drink the same beverage every morning, And what I was finding is when I would if I didn't listen to my body and I would keep drinking that coffee, my adrenals were getting very depleted.
That's right.
So I'd say, the next day I'm maybe Slippery Elm is the tea I go forward on. And then sometimes I'm good on Earl Grey. I got an organic Earl Grey and I do well on that.
Yep.
But my body likes variety. So therefore, even though it's a healthy coffee and I love it, my body says I need a break. And if I'm asking every day, I know whether, that morning, if I go back, I'll skip it today.
That's right. Yeah.
And, tomorrow maybe I'll be good on it. But I just like to have the best energy I can throughout the entire day. And this way you can tap into your innate intelligence and say, body, what's going to give me the highest energy today?
Yep.
Rather than, I'm going through these dips and I'm back up. And then especially with coffee and stimulants, we think, if our energy's low, then I need to get a 5-hour energy or a monster drink. Well, that actually, every time I test on 5-hour energy, I never drink it, but I have one at home just for testing purposes. And, it's
you don't
depleting.
get back a yes on 5-hour energy.
I have
yet.
not, no. Yeah,
exactly. Or Red Bulls or Monsters.
Oh, absolutely not, yeah.
Even in the morning, like you're describing with getting into the ritual or the routine of even a healthy coffee, is that to be able to use the innate intelligence and see, are you potentially getting the answer to go with an herbal tea? And sometimes it's literally, I feel like we are just children that need a pacifier in the morning of something hot. And so if you try the hot tea, like an herbal one, and just see how that interplays with you. Yeah. And maybe instead of going really hard, like caffeinated, maybe you kind of relax back with like a book for like the first hour or two of the day and kind of like let your blood pressure just naturally rise like in the day rather than just going hard in the morning. Stuff like that. Let
me give you another energy tip.
Yeah.
Okay, there's the thymus gland. It's Dr. John Diamond writes in his book Life Energy how this helps to regulate our life force. And if you just thump on it, it's right around where your second button is here.
Interesting.
And we even, for you that remember Tarzan movies. He would beat right there. And I don't know if they knew it was actually a physiological switch.
It is, yeah.
So I'll do that in the morning. In fact, every morning,
cool.
But right before my meditations, I'll just thump right on this. Now, there's another acupressure point right here called Conception Vessel 24. It's a meridian that runs right up the front, this midline of the body. It ends right here under the lower lip and that dip in the chin. And if you tap there, it actually helps to stimulate dopamine. So that's another energizer.
Wow.
While we're on the energy thing, we already talked about the ear unrolling technique. So in other words, instead of just going for that morning cup, do some deep breathing, often ride my bike in the morning.
Exactly. Go out in the sun, run around. Yeah. Like
also get on the earth. Get your feet barefoot on the earth. It's called grounding. Like I live right at the beach. I'll go out in the sand with my bare feet, or if you're on grass, if you can. I know in some climates it's cold winter weather right now, but if you can, get on natural, connected with the earth.
Yes.
And that's an energizer. The ear unrolling technique. Here's another one. Pull apart on this. It's called the sagittal suture between the two bones here called the parietal bone. Breathe in and pull apart like you're trying to open up the skull. And breathe in, pull apart, and then exhale, relax. And then pull apart as you breathe in. Exhale, relax. Deep breath in. Exhale, relax. In doing that, that's another energizer. On a biochemical or supplement, the amino acid tyrosine, it's called L-tyrosine, a 500 milligram capsule. I take one first thing in the morning. That also stimulates your dopamine, which is what coffee and stimulants do. And so we're always trying to, let's say, self-medicate to get us to feel good. And so in the case of coffee, we're raising our dopamine. The problem with, again, there's good quality coffees and there's ones that are not so good, but an organic coffee and how much your body wants, which you also mentioned about the ounces. See, I can muscle test, and I'll do it with my knee up here, and I'll say, okay, more than 4 ounces, more than 6 ounces. Okay, 6 ounces, 7 ounces, 6. So I can actually see how much of the coffee,
That's so interesting.
So I find if I have, like say in my body's case, 6 ounces, I feel great. But if I say, oh, let me have some more, then I go over the top.
And that's very similar, the exercises that you had me do, thanks to your content that's also available online, where you walk us through these like multi-hour long sessions across muscle testing and other aspects of kinesiology, where you can do this process where you go, okay, tonight, 2 ounces of wine, 3 ounces of wine, 4 ounces of wine, and you're already starting to go backward when you're getting into the higher ounces. And similarly, maybe with another one that I played with was the milligrams of cannabis is another one, like 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams, 20. I started going back like right after 20 or right after maybe 4 or 6 ounces of wine as well. Yeah. Like you really kind of want to muscle test those numbers as well, and then stick to that, like 2 glasses or whatever you tested in at. Yeah. Yeah. It's really cool.
Yeah. And on our kinesiologyinstitute.com, we have a way people get a free 3-day course that shows a lot more of these techniques that go way beyond, and like specific acupressure points, like for headaches, and a lot of the ways you're using this to, again, have better health, better energy, and a longer life.
Exactly.
My goal is to be teaching this at least to 100 years old. In fact, my oldest student, she came to my class when she was 95. Her name was Irene Harrison.
Wow.
And I asked her, Irene, what are you here for? And she says, well, I don't care if I live to be 105. I'm going to keep on learning.
I love that.
In fact, she was not only in my kinesiology classes, she's also a yoga student of mine. And she'd come to yoga class, 95, 98 years old. And she actually made it to 108 years old.
Wow.
And she was amazing. She was a friend of Thomas Edison's.
Wow.
See, Thomas Edison's wife was from Akron.
Wow.
Well, Irene's father started Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company.
Wow.
So they were
crazy.
like drinking buddies or whatever.
That's so crazy.
And so she would go over to Thomas Edison's house, and after a session that I was working with her one day, she sat up and she said, you're doing what my old friend Thomas Edison said the doctor of the future will do.
Beautiful.
The doctor of the future will give no drugs or medicine, but he will educate his patient in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease.
Exactly.
So that's what we're doing. It's and your body will educate you. That's your innate intelligence isn't stupid.
Yeah.
It knows what you should eat. And that's why for me, testing, I don't test everything. I'm like, I know. And even without muscle testing, if you really get tuned into your innate intelligence, it tells you. It's your intuitive, like your gut feeling, your intuition knows what's good and what's not. And even Dr. Thie, the one who created Touch for Health, told me, he says, eventually we'll be so in tune we won't need to muscle test.
That's what I was also wanting to chat about, which is probably a good segue into that.
Yeah.
Is this sort of riding on the crest of each wave? When we get so intuitively good at it, we end up not needing the muscle test. The muscle test, in a sense, is training wheels for the highest level of intuitive flow. Yeah. I see.
So I don't want people to think, oh God, now I got to muscle test every move I make, and everything I'm putting in my body, and that and basically it boils down to, is this food rich in life force?
Yes.
And it's basically your organic produce, plant-based organic produce. And for those that are, wanting like free-range, organic, like meats and that, for those that find that's okay. And it's a bio-individual thing.
It is bio-individuality.
Like some people, I was a strict vegetarian for 8 years. And I found my energy was just really getting low. And so I ended up having a steak one day for like first time in 8 years. Like, wow, do I feel great.
Great. Yeah, it's so interesting.
And
Exactly. Yeah.
and yet I have like Sheldon Deal. He's been a vegetarian for I think at least, let's see, 60 years. He's been a vegetarian.
It's crazy, yeah.
And for him that works fine.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not one size fits all.
Exactly. It's super bio-individual, and there's so much complexity in the gut microbiome as well for each person.
Yeah.
I wonder, we should probably chat about this a bit because it's so obviously critical for the future of humanity, which is that we'll bring up multiple of these as we talk.
Mm-hmm.
So,
oh yes,
yeah, we have David Hawkins' levels of consciousness, and specifically the reason why I want to even bring this up is its relationship to the ego and force, which is down there in the 0 to 200 range, and then the enlightenment and power upwards, which is in that closer to 1000 range. And the people in the positions of power around the planet, Fortune 500 CEOs, the UN General Assembly, the 2,200 billionaires on the planet, 225,000 ultra high net worth around the planet, the USA Congress, all these different people in positions of power, and being able to map their levels of egoic separation and find those garden hose knots and then be able to help catalyze a process of creating the energy flows that enable the piercing the veil towards that self-realization and towards that more harmonic and abundant and prosperous architecting of the future fabric that we are so excited to enable the future of maximizing human potential. And so this is sort of where I want to see a conversation with you at a pragmatic level around especially the people in the greatest amounts of power. And just, we have this other one that you brought with today, which is the, it comes along with some of the further, that's the same graphic, and it was brought with John today. So walk us through sort of these different levels on the Hawkins levels of consciousness, and also how the influence that we can catalyze not only for ourselves but for the people in the positions of greatest power, and just unraveling those garden hose knots.
Well, it starts with looking at our own consciousness and where we're at. And the name of the game is to elevate your consciousness.
Yeah.
In all your thoughts, in deeds, in your life purpose and mission. And there's times where you, because of life and things that happen to you, that you are in a deep state of, let's say, grief or anger or maybe guilt. And the first step is just to acknowledge that's where you're at. It's accept. In fact, acceptance is a higher level above 200. Just to give you a background, Hawkins would muscle test, and he gives an arbitrary 1,000 points on the scale, and it's logarithmic. So when you have a frequency which he goes 200 or lower, that's something that would actually muscle test weak, and be a stressor for you. And again, it's from an ego, I'm separate from others.
Yep.
And so when you feel like you're separate from others and they're not meeting your expectations, you can get angry, or you can get sad, or, a state of shame is the lowest on the scale. Yep. So first aware, oh, I'm in this state. I'm in a reactive mind, a reactive mode.
Yep.
And so by going to love and acceptance, we actually have a technique for this. There's a point, and they talk about this in emotional freedom technique. It's called it's actually small intestine 3. It's an acupressure point. They call it the karate chop point.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, even though I'm feeling very angry about this situation going on in my life, and everyone can do this if they have an anger, or it could be a sadness or whatever their upset is around. I totally, again, we'll start from the beginning. So even though I have this situation in my life that I feel very upset with, I totally and completely love and accept myself.
Yeah.
And it can be about yourself. Say, even though I feel shame around this thing, or even though I feel guilty about this situation in my life, I totally and completely love and accept myself.
That's right.
And then you can do both of them together. Even though I have this situation that I'm feeling upset about,
I totally
and completely love and accept myself. And what that does alone is it brings you up into that higher plane of consciousness.
It does, yeah.
So love and acceptance, loving yourself is the greatest love of all. I think there was a song about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Learning to love yourself
Yeah,
is the greatest love. It's Whitney Houston, but I think George Benson was the first one that did that. Yeah. And so that's where whatever's going on in your lower fields of consciousness, love and accept it. Don't resist it. The more you say, I hate that about myself, locks you in, because what you resist persists. But when you love and accept that part of yourself and just allow it to be, it's like the caterpillar that's going in the cocoon and then coming out the butterfly.
That's right.
So transformation is a process of letting go. In fact, those are 3 key words in life. Whatever you're holding on to, let it go. And that's where this,
let it go. That's so
let
good.
it go.
That's so good, yeah.
And so when you're
surrender, yeah.
Acceptance.
And
so the lower states are like shame, guilt, grief. There's when you move into anger, you're actually moving up the scale. So sometimes, like when I was in deep states of sadness, I actually became very angry. And knowing that when you can feel something and express it, you can heal it. So the worst thing is to just bottle it up and say, well, I don't want to feel it, or take a drug so I deaden my nervous system, my consciousness. So I just allow myself to be with it. Now, the key is you don't want to act out that anger towards another person, because then when people are, in fact, if you yell at someone, that makes them yell back and angry back. So what I first do is I'll say, okay, on my own, even though I'm really angry right now, I'll give another tip. There's a point, stomach 1, where we tap when you have an emotional upset, right under the eyes at the top of the cheekbone, and I use 2 fingers, the index and the middle finger together, breathing deep, and I'll focus on whatever. It could be anger, it could be fear, it could be anxiety, it could be grief. Just focusing on that while you tap helps to balance the energy and remove the blockage. Mm-hmm. I had one time where I was approaching someone, and I said, oh my God, I feel so angry at this person. What I'm about to do could end up putting me in prison. So I'm breathing and tapping here as I'm walking towards that person, and the anger just melted. And within 30 seconds, I was able to express myself to that person and be able to say, hey, there's a situation that I'm finding, gets me a lot, I'm getting very upset about, and I have a request. Yeah. Would you be willing to do this? And by making the request, and if they said, in this case, yes, I can do that, then I just let it go. Because you're looking for rather than focusing on the problem, what's the solution? And how can I come from a state of consciousness where we are one, being like we're connected on a higher plane? Because ultimately that's what happens when you move above 200. You're in a state of consciousness where we're all one. Ram Dass used to say, when you know your true self and I know my true self, there's only one of us.
Exactly.
So that's getting
right.
to that state. And so I just can't, it's hardly ever do I get upset with anyone, because really the source of upset is unfulfilled expectation, a thwarted intention, which is where I'm wanting something to happen, it doesn't happen, and a broken rule where I say this person should be this way and that way and they shouldn't do this or that. Like, well, the good news, the news is other people are not in this world to live up to your expectations. And you're not in this world to live up to theirs. So if we can see what is it we want to accomplish together, and what is the world we want to create together, that's where the beauty is. That's where we get a world that works for everyone. So when you're using this whole map of consciousness, what I ultimately say is, how can I create peace? The highest level, right under enlightenment. How can I create peace with myself, with everyone in my life, and with whatever has happened in my life, to be at peace with it?
Yep.
And that way, I can then come to the highest level of consciousness to evolve.
Yes. Yes.
That's basically,
Yeah.
to be at a state of peace with everyone and everything.
Yeah. Even just the loving yourself and accepting yourself and moving beyond the 0 to 200 range towards an acceptance is just such a massive step. That is by far the first most important step. And then beyond acceptance is just the further kind of self-realization process, piercing the veil, recognizing that when you're your true self, I'm your true self, we're only one being. And that is what the well of honey is. It is that peace and bliss. It is that natural state of pure consciousness that is eternally being colored by experience. And that is what this is. That is what we've been doing. That is what will continue happening. And so this is the most important thing for not only people to get at an individual level, but for the businesses that affect our world, and for all of the people in the largest positions of power that affect our world, for us to baseline people away from sort of pride and desire, and especially the self-dealing intentions of the ego, greed, conspicuous consumption, and towards intentions that are of joy, peace, and bliss, and enlightenment, and recognizing that there is no other, but that it's just a unique expression of that one God, source, infinitude that's occurring. And so once we get people in positions of power into states of consciousness that are elevated like that, that's when we can really have the enlightened civilization that is maximizing human potential.
I know Dennis Kucinich, who's from Cleveland, Ohio, said, why don't we create a cabinet of peace? A department of peace rather than a war department, Yeah. And
exactly.
The more we, and it all comes down to voting, and just the other thing is we have this, we're right and they're wrong, and that's the unfortunate polarity we see a lot in our world today, is how we can come with what is it we want to all create, and we all want to have a safer, loving world for our children to grow up into, and how in really raising consciousness is the ultimate solution to all problems.
100%.
Yeah. And so rather than being in this anger, it's saying, okay, let's see how we can come to common ground, and that we have shared values, that we have to make the world a better place, to have a better place for our children to grow up into, to have love in our hearts. And so and Ram Dass talked about this, how he had a picture of some political person that he despised on his altar, and he would have, his guru and Jesus and all this, and he would actually love his, in a sense, his enemy, to say, I need to let go of hate towards people.
That's right.
And just loving people. And that's where, when the Cold War really ended, Tony Robbins talks about this, because he asked Gorbachev, and he said, when did the Cold War end? Well, he said they were arguing. Him and Reagan were arguing in this talk. And so Ronald Reagan said, hey, let's go out for a walk. And then they went out for a walk, and he said, let's start fresh. And he says, hi, my name's Ron. And he said that they dropped the image of each being the evil empire. We're going to see, hey, let's be as brothers. Let's connect at a higher level.
Exactly.
And, okay, we don't need all these nuclear warheads pointing at each other, which unfortunately there's still a lot of that going on. But it comes from your own raise your own consciousness, because that's the one person you can work on, raising your consciousness. And Hawkins talks about this in the book, that people that are high levels of consciousness, like say Gandhi, for instance, had such a profound power. That's where he calls the power versus the force.
Yep. That
was a stronger power than the entire, say, British army and military.
Yep.
That vibration influenced millions of people.
Yep.
And so when you raise your consciousness, you have a stronger, more powerful effect.
Totally.
Over a much greater power.
Yeah, I love the geopolitical example that you gave when you do relax back into the oneness, when you relax back into what we're going to talk about here in a moment, the non-duality, the more that we recognize the infinite perfection that this is now, and we bring other people into that to butterfly effect out even more harmonic peace, bliss, love, compassion, understanding, flourishing, rather than the egoic separate entity, which is more and more beginning to dissolve into the hot tea of the infinite. And so that's one of my favorite analogies, thanks to Rupert Spira most recently, that I've been talking about quite a bit. So this would probably be the good time to transition into that, which would be something like, would it be, I'm curious how you see this multi-layered approach. So at the very height of the non-duality of the perennial wisdom on a planetary level is that everything is absolutely, indescribably perfect. Just simply this.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another layer, which is where you can enter into the duality, which is where you say things like, okay, well, there's suffering and there's well-being, and we're trying to eradicate suffering and we're trying to maximize well-being on a planetary level. Is this, how do your frameworks align with something like that?
Well, each day, it's like living into the question, where am I going to find joy today? Where am I going to create peace? Where am I going to create love and compassion? And so you become like a beam of bringing and spreading that. So for me, each interaction that I have with someone, like for instance, when I was checking out at a store last night, my favorite one was I was at the DMV in Hawaii, and I was getting my, I used to live in Hawaii, and it's in Waimea, Hawaii, and I go to the DMV, and we're in this long line, and so I get to the woman at the thing, and then she's helping me out, and I say, I just want to let you know how much I appreciate how great you are.
Exactly.
And how it's actually a pleasure to be here.
Exactly.
And she almost fell over. It's like, no one's ever said that here.
Exactly.
It's like everyone's complaining. And so...
And then you had the smoothest, easiest, most frictionless experience possible.
Yeah, rather than, God, I've been in this line for 30 minutes, and when can you... this is so frustrating.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just to appreciate people.
Exactly.
I once interviewed, who famous Wally Amos, famous Amos, and I interviewed him once, and he goes and does these incredible keynote speeches, and I said, do you have like an outline you use when you're doing these and you got your stories all lined up? And he says, no, he says, I only go in there with one commitment, and that commitment is to have those people feel better about themselves than when they came in.
Mm-hmm.
So in every interaction, I just feel like, how can I make this person feel better about themselves? And
Now, maybe another way to say that would be, have you gotten to a point where it's just a deep surrender to the absolute flow of this? Because there's, when you say that, how can I, right? How can I maximize the potential of the scenario, right? There's sort of that in a sense is what I've understood to be more of the adding in that more free will style aspect to it. Whereas what I've recognized more and more to be the absolute indescribable surrender to just the unfolding of this. How does that resonate?
Well, that is, and Michael Beckwith talks about that. There's the lowest level of consciousness is victim. They're doing it to me. This is that, and the government's doing this and this and that. And then you get to the next level of consciousness where you become proactive and say, oh, I'm going to create my own reality. And that I can make, and that's an important stage to get to where, hey, I could be proactive and I can create this, wonderful life. But then when you go beyond that, you go, I just in a state of surrender and let the spirit run my life is the song they actually have.
Yeah.
And I just surrender into the day.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm not like intentionally even thinking, oh, I got to make this person feel better about themselves. It's just a natural flow.
Exactly.
Where it's effortless.
Exactly.
It's just, it's a way of being.
That's what Lao Tzu meant by Wu Wei, effortless action.
Yeah.
Once you pierce the veil and self-realize yourself and everybody else as the one infinite creator or God or source or non-duality, whatever you want to say about it, the universe, however you want to call it, the multiverse, that there's a channel that opens up of a complete surrender to the indescribable perfection of flow that occurs. You naturally end up being of the utmost highest morality and ethics in the outward expression of that. And so that sort of understanding has been more and more one of the core drives of the perennial wisdom that are trying to enter into more and more of modernity in a way that helps them solve many of the ethical and moral quandaries that exist. Again, it's just these egoic levels. The sugar cube that's this contracted separate entity is just holding on so separate, so fear-based, so conspicuous consumption greed-based, and that it's just not recognizing, it's not dissolving yet fully into that oneness, into that infinitude, into that shared being. The pupil in itself is the shared eye of God, and the iris is the unique coloration of that expression of it. And so the more that we sort of land our hearts and our beings and our essence in that knowing, in that surrender, the more everything else just wu-wei effortlessly unfolds to the absolute highest. It's so so indescribable. And that's why at the top of the map of consciousness, what do you see with pure consciousness? You see ineffability. It's ineffable.
I remember when I studied with David Hawkins, I went to Sedona. And he began his lecture, today we're going to talk about that which can't be talked about.
Exactly.
And everyone cracks up laughing.
Yeah.
That's it.
The
It's
eternal Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao.
Yeah.
It's just this perennial wisdom that's continuously talked about from all these different faces and paths. Hawkins was, in fact, one of the best humorists. He was top-level humorist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. He knew how to bring that into the equation. It was so perfect.
And I walked out of there feeling I've just elevated. I'm not the same person. Being in his presence,
Exactly.
I was like, I'm altered. It just brought me right up.
Yeah.
Now, I want to give another practical tip on this whole thing.
Let's do it.
Is when you find someone's angry at you, or that's the thing that trips us down into that lower state when we get into reactive, because someone's angry at us and we naturally have this ego reacting back. What I find is if I can go into a state of love and compassion,
amen,
and just beam that out, their negativity doesn't get into me,
and it dissolves,
from them.
Yeah.
Give an example of that. I was dropping my daughter off at school, and I was finding, anyway, I was getting frustrated because the woman in front of me, I said, why don't you just move up a little, I can get out. So she wouldn't move up. So I back up my car, and apparently I hit the truck behind me, not hard enough to dent it, but just kind of tap it or whatever. And then I zoomed out of that parking space. The woman behind me is in a big Dodge Ram, and she comes after me in traffic. And I could see it on her face. She's raging mad. So I said, oh, I better pull over. And so she pulls up alongside of me. She says, you hit my car. And so I thought, oh, I could get angry back. But what I did is I dropped into this love and compassion and beamed it out. And I said to her, oh my God, I'm so sorry. She says, you got to not drive so fast. You got to be more careful. I said, wow, you're so right. Thank you so much. I really, I apologize, and I'm going to take your advice. You really, just basically gave her acceptance and no fight back. And so I said, okay. And then she says, okay, so you go ahead and you have a good day now. And I said, I thank you so much. I will. You too. And it was like from the time where she's going to pull a gun out and shoot me, she's wishing me to have a great day.
Exactly.
And I find that so helpful because we so easily get into this reactive mind, especially in the day and age we're in.
Totally.
Just when people come at you with anger,
relax,
breathe, and project love and compassion, and their negativity, like you said, it gets dissolved.
Yep.
And then you also are shielded, so it's not bringing you down.
Yep.
And smiling at them, and there's times where I say, "Oh, let me understand what's going on with you." So I apologize if I did something wrong. It wasn't my intention. And just being able to be at a state where you're in that higher level of consciousness, and that's what Hawkins is talking about. Is when you're up in those higher levels. My mentor, Les Brown, said this to me. He said, if you can't bring other people up, don't let them bring you down. It's not your responsibility, but when you resonate at those high levels, they often just rise right up. And that's what I find invariably happens.
So here's the way that I see this. On the absolute highest is an indescribable surrender to the non-dual tune, to the non-dual song, to the non-dual flow.
Yeah.
On another layer of it, we can say that there is a suffering that is being eradicated and moving towards a well-being and a prosperity and an abundance. And within that exists what you describe, which is this recognizing the egoic sugar cube that is contracted and is creating a negativity. And you, in a state, as you become more and more self-realized, as you pierce the veil, as you have the well of honey of peace and bliss 24/7, you're just emanating out. That's why it's called enlightenment. You're emanating out the light. That state inevitably dissolves the egoic sugar cubes in the others that are bringing in a negativity inward. And so the entirety of the situation is described in all of these, the nature of reality is described in all of these different faces up the mountain, which then aim to help people on their journeys to pierce the veil and self-realize themselves. That's why when people like you with the Kinesiology Institute, you probably gave a dozen examples throughout the conversation. You might have given 15 examples. You gave a lot of examples. Those are all different faces, different strategies to the same one end, which is well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And in many ways, that's what Tony Robbins does with his events. He's all these different events that he does across the planet. The Date with Destiny, Unleash Power Within. There's all these different events that he does. All these different interviews that we do. All about describing the different faces to the one truth of just peace, bliss, perfection, indescribable nowness, and just being here with that. And naturally that creates the channel of the outward expression, which is your uniqueness. And this has been more and more the common perennial wisdom that's being revealed, that we're remembering. And it's just, that's home. That is home. We are home. Around us, we are walking each other home. We are just piercing the veil and recognizing this is home, and that we become more and more remembered to the true nature of our being. And this is probably a good moment to wrap also with the beauty of your harmonica and of the beauty of the of the music, right? Music, as Alan Watts talked about, music, it forces you to surrender into the flow of the now, into the perfection of the now. You can't be truly tapped into the music while thinking about the past or the future. You have to be present in order to be fully engaged into the harmonica or whatever instrument, or even the simple just dancing and stretching and just releasing and expandingness. That forces you into the now. It forces you, in.
Yeah, we say in kinesiology that sound is really the highest level of healing, because it affects every body. It affects the physical body. It affects the emotional body, the mental body, the spiritual body, and all the fields, the chakras. In fact, you can balance the chakras with specific frequencies or vibrations, like certain notes. And so, and while I was driving over here today, I was listening to the classical station. And in fact, there's a technique where you can put classical music on a specific acupressure point. It's called CV4. It's basically just below the halfway point between your belly button and the pubic bone. And you could take a little speaker, like even your earbud.
Oh, so cool.
And you could put adagio, kind of like classical music, like say like Pachelbel's Canon or Bach's Air on a G string. And you could put that on that acupressure point, and it deeply soothes and heals all these aspects in your body.
I love that. That's such a good piece of wisdom too. Take the actual speaker itself and move it to C4?
It's CV, Conception Vessel 4. It's an acupressure point. And if you touch your umbilicus, the navel, and you touch the top of your pubic bone, it's about halfway between the two of those. And you don't have to listen to it. You don't have to hear the sound. I was doing that one time where I was very stressed. And so when I wake up in the morning, I would put the classical clock radio on that point and just hold it there for a couple minutes. And I was like, God, I feel so much better now.
I know.
So sound actually has, in music, a powerful effect on our healing. In fact, I teach that in my fundamentals course, how you can muscle test music. And in there, when I play the classical music, people are really strong, and something that's weakened will be strengthened.
Yeah.
Where if I listen to, say, like gangster rap, it will weaken people.
Exactly, totally.
And unfortunately, a lot of the music today is very hard on our system and creating energy blockage. Yeah. But you can choose things that bring you energy. And like you mentioned, moving to music and dancing and expressing. That's that allows the chi to flow.
And this would be great if while we have John playing the harmonica, that we surrender into that nowness.
Okay.
The indescribable perfection.
Okay.
I'm so excited for everyone.
Okay.
That was so nice.
Thanks for letting me do that.
That was so nice. I wonder if we can play. That's so nice. And I love how the harmonica is so mobile and it just comes with you wherever you go and you whip it out and it's so loud. I love that. I'm curious if I'm getting this perfect position where the sunlight, the sun that's setting, is shining through the peephole of the door, and it's changing colors from red to orange to yellow to green to blue to purple. It's so majestic. Okay. Oof. Wow. Just these simple things. And just briefly, and that's why, Terrence McKenna, when he was on his way out after he was diagnosed, that he found eternity and infinity and peace and bliss and even the simple blade of grass or the ant crawling on the ground, which is what the childlike essence is before around 18 months or so. The child is just so deeply infinite, and then all this permanence, everything with permanence kicks in and stuff like that. I wonder if we can, with the harmonica, it would be nice if we can play where if we take just the dBs, the decibels of what you're doing, and if we half that, and then if I come in and I kind of rhythmically come in with some audio, let's see what we can do. These levels of consciousness, we work our way naturally from force to power, from the ego to the enlightenment, love, light, consciousness. That was so nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I love that. It's so childlike. It's so playful. It's just spontaneous. And that's what is the flow.
Yeah.
That's what is it. John Maguire, thank you so much for coming on the program.
It's been such a delight to share and just be at one with you.
Likewise. Likewise. Kinesiology Institute has so many great offerings for people. You gave 15 different of these, just this is going to be me now.
Tips.
I'm just going to be like this and like this and
Yeah.
and like this and all these different tests. So I really hope that people can leverage those very simple different faces that you've shown, as well as all of there's a 3-day program that's available on Kinesiology Institute.
3-day class that gives you a lot more. And we also have my book that's coming out soon. I'm writing a book on muscle testing, a lot of these little practical tips and how you can use it to enhance your health and basically tap into your innate intelligence in all aspects of your life. So I'm making that digital copy available to anyone that wants to. You can tell them how to go to support@kinesiologyinstitute.com.
Exactly.
And request, just say I'd like the muscle testing book.
Yes.
And as we get it out here shortly, we'll be able to send them a digital copy of that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. There's so much, all the instructions to this are in the bio, so you can find all of the instructions to request the digital copy of the muscle testing book to access innate intelligence. Support@kinesiologyinstitute.com is where you'll send that email. Again, all that info is in the bio. Kinesiologyinstitute.com links there, and also John's LinkedIn profile is down there as well if you'd like to go and connect with him. And thank you for watching. Greatly appreciate you all. Thank you so much. We would love to hear how you feel in the comments below. Let us know. We'd love to also hear how the takeaways are going for everyone. Let us know how that's going. And like the video, subscribe if you haven't, and share the video with people that you know would find it interesting to learn more about kinesiology and consciousness and what John was sharing with us today. And that is all. Pierce the veil, self-realize, surrender to the indescribable perfection. I love you
Be
so
well.
much. Be well. Thank you
Hey.
for tuning in. Thank you, John.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
having me here to share all these gems that I can.
It's been our honor. Thank you.
All right.
Your the aroma of your flower has been so nice.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.